Okay, so you've just had a major loss in your family. One of your parents has died. There are 5 kids in the family. Everybody shows up with their grief. Everybody shows up to the table with their own brokenness. And what we find happens over and over again is that everyone's aspect of the grief comes to the very first part. You know, in the beginning, we're doing all that hugging, we're hugging each other, we're supporting each other, we're loving each other. But very quickly, that goes away. And what shows up is the daughter who had a tumultuous relationship with her dad, the daughter who was spoiled by the dad, the son who got beat by the dad. All of that pain shows up and all that grief shows up. And what ends up happening is now we start fighting with each other because our grief showed up into the room 10 minutes before we got there. And it is not uncommon that while we're trying to plan the service or while we're trying to grieve, we all start fighting with each other.
Yeah, that's so true. Everybody has their own. We did a podcast. We can't compare the loss because it's unique and individual. So everyone has their own hurt.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own hurt, and when you show up with your hurt, and I'm expecting your hurt to be just like my hurt, and you say something that I'm like, no, that's not right. It's like
Yeah.
this, and then you're like, no, it's this color, and then next thing you know, you're in a full on family brawl. It's more common than you think, and it's sad because, like you said, you should be hugging one another and holding space for each other and supporting each other through the pain and the loss, but you're not. You can't get over that dad bought you this special chocolate bunny and I didn't get that one. I You got the bunny that was this big and I got the bunny that was this big, and he showed up to your place. He never came to my basketball games. I mean, that's what comes up, right?
Yeah. That's what comes up. And a lot of times we're not saying that
Right.
because I know that you always got the big bunny. I know
Of
that, but that
course.
wasn't what I said. What I was saying is that that's not what comes up. So then you and I were just talking about this. Like our dad was, we were blessed in that he planned his own service with us. And we actually had a family meeting and he told us what he wanted. But even with that, there were still aspects undone. And at the time that we sat down to write the obituary, you and I, the family, we sat down to write the obituary. Just that in itself was a perfect example. All of the different ways we all wanted to write it, what we wanted to come across in that obituary, that was the part he left undone. He said he didn't care what we wrote. And so you guys just write whatever you want. I'm fine. Just make sure it's nice. I think he made a joke about it. And when we got there, one person wanted it to be serious. The other person wanted it to be funny. The other person wanted it to be a 10-page novel. Like everybody's aspect that came to it. Luckily for us, we kept it together and we held it together. But that one event alone could send the whole entire family into a tizzy and a fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what people need to realize. When you experience a loss as a family, you got to give people the space to grieve how they need to grieve and to say the things that they need to say. Sometimes what shows up is anger.
Yeah.
And if I'm mad at dad and you're not mad at dad, you love him, you think he was the best dad ever. You need to allow me the space to be mad and don't say to me, you shouldn't feel like that. He was a good dad to you. That's not the place to say it, time or place. You need
Yeah.
to give the person the space until that subsides a little bit, and then maybe go back and have a follow-up conversation. But if you don't want World War III breaking out at the funeral,
Yeah.
you got to give everyone the space to grieve how they need to grieve and to say the things that they need to say, even if you don't agree with them.
And acknowledge that your emotions are showing up right now and your loss and your incomplete communication is showing up right now. I was an event planner for 25 years. I did event planning and I specialized in weddings. And so I was a wedding coordinator. And you know what my job was, Erica? 99% of my job was table arrangements. My dad can't sit next to his mom because they haven't spoken 20 years. My stepmom can't be at the table with my mom. My mother will kill her. My brother and sister are not speaking. Please make sure they stay separated. Like I had to have the list of who hated who didn't like who doesn't like the color red. We're little, I'm making a
Right.
joke out of this, but that's exactly who it was. I'm here to tell you that those same family members show up at the after the death.
Yep.
How many
Yep.
times have we heard, I'm never speaking to my brother again? Because the pain was so deep, and that just planning the funeral threw it off, or I've kept it together while my dad was alive, and now that he's gone, I don't need to speak to you anymore.
Hmm.
It's layers and layers deep. I'm mad at dad, now I'm mad at brother, now I'm going to do this. It's completely out of whack where that is concerned.
And a lot of times when we have a situation like that, everybody wants somebody to blame.
Yeah.
So if you're the oldest and you're the one making the decisions, then it's your fault. You killed dad. You know what I mean? Like then it turns into that because then they want.
Oh, are you trying to tell me something?
Good thing I was there those last 2 because I witnessed that you did not kill dad. But
Even that time when he slapped me? You were there when I got slapped, right?
I don't
Anyway.
think I came right after that.
Anyway, I was still being corrected even at the last moment. Um, uh, Sometimes what we have to do is we have to grieve the parent, but we also have to grieve the brother or sister,
Yeah.
or we have to grieve the planning of the funeral. Sometimes the planning of the funeral is not just what we're talking about, because the planning of the funeral is gone by the 3 weeks, right? And then we have to learn how to live together.
Yeah.
We have to learn to live together in our grief. I need you to understand how bad I feel. I need you to understand how bad this feels. Now, take that same family that's arguing about that and put in selling the estate,
Oh my gosh. Yes.
the will, the life insurance, selling the house. How much hurt and pain come about by that? How much hurt and pain? You and I did a show a few months ago about making the arrangements, letting
Mhm.
everybody know who's getting the cup of water, who's getting my favorite blanket, who's getting this. It's so much better if we have that handled. But when we don't have that handled, we have all the emotions show up for that. It
Yeah.
tears families apart.
It does, and it's so sad. It's so sad that they let that get to them because it's material stuff, and it's
Yeah.
everybody wants to keep score. You can't
Yeah.
keep score, And my mother-in-law just I had this experience with her. I was with her 2 weeks ago, and she gave me her fox coat that my father-in-law bought her 40 years ago. She said she
Uh,
still remembered when he gave it to her, and she gave me the whole details. And she had been wanting to give it to me for a lot of years. I had borrowed it when I went to a Mardi Gras ball, and she told me she wanted to give it to me. So she finally gave it to me. She said, "You know what? I decided that I'm going to start giving stuff to the people I want them to have it while
yeah.
I'm here
Yes.
instead of having everyone fight over it." And I thought
Yeah.
that was the smartest thing, especially her knowing her children.
She's a good mama.
She is a good mama because that's the thing. What happens when the peacekeeper, when mom, the buffer, the
Yeah.
holder of all the secrets dies?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a free for all for the kids to just attack one another.
Yeah. And all of our emotions show up at that time. And you know what? To be honest, sometimes the emotion isn't about the person that died. It's just all the unresolved grief within us,
Yeah.
the unresolved grief that we've had for years. You know, he was an alcoholic. I was raised by an alcoholic father. I was raised by a drug addict mother. My parents had a tumultuous relationship and they hated each other. And all of that pain shows up at the time when you were not expecting it. Because you know what? For 25 years, you've been able to manage that.
Right.
You've been able to get through without it. And guess when it's going to show up? When you don't want it to.
Absolutely. And the misunderstanding at the service over the chicken, it's not about the chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe you ordered all this chicken. I mean, it's just something so asinine. It's not
Yeah.
about the chicken. It's about my heart is broken. I have these old hurts and they've bubbled up to the surface now that dad is gone, mom is gone, whoever is gone. And I don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to attack you.
And if you're brave enough, that's the exact paragraph you need to say. I have all of these emotions showing up right now. I don't know what to do with them. And they're all the anger is coming out. And every time I come here and I come around all of you guys, all I get is angry. I want to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to do my best to work with my own personal emotions. And I suggest you guys do the same. But we have to get this done right now. So let's be respectful to one another. This can always be shelved and we can come back to it later. That's the thing we need to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing we need to say.
Tell the truth about ourselves always. We say all the time, you
Yeah.
got to speak your truth. And God, I had a good point. It was about, oh, I said, I love it. It's my favorite saying, but anger is sad's bodyguard. I heard it
Yeah.
from a client. I can't unhear it. It's my most favorite thing. And we have a sibling who shows up in anger all the time. And we love her. God bless her, but she shows up in anger. Sharon, do you have feelings about this?
Why are you calling me out?
But you gotta you if she would come in and say that what you just said,
Yeah.
I'm really angry, I have all this, I don't know what to do with it, and preface, but she doesn't. She comes in and our mom calls her the bull. She comes in like a mad bull. That's what her mom calls her.
Oh my God. You need to stop. She's going to hear this podcast because she listens to all our podcasts and know it's her.
I'm her favorite, so I can say it.
And this is our next show. It's absolutely when we need to be aware of what our emotions are and our feelings
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If she would speak her truth, but we know how she shows up, so we know how to handle it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of times in families that you don't know how
Yeah.
to handle it, and
Yeah.
you're not used to it, and you take it personal, and then that also leads to a fight.
You know,
Instead of just knowing she's struggling, I'm just going to give her some space.
you and I were just talking about reading the obituary at the funeral. It's one of your pet peeves. We should do a podcast on it. Okay, first of all, no, we should do the podcast on there are no rules for how to make the funeral. I think we've done that before, but Erica really hates it when you give her the printed program and then you get somebody to read the obituary. It's just one
Why
of her pet
print
peeves.
it if
Okay.
you're just going to read it to me?
Okay, that's not what this show is about. The show is about the next part. One of my dad's pet peeves always was having alcohol at the funeral and the repast after the funeral has taken place, because typically what happens is our grieving friends and family start drinking alcohol, and what the heck do you think happens with all of that when all that alcohol hits your body? All those emotions show up. Then the next thing you know, we're sitting there consoling cousin Mary, who hasn't seen him in 30 years, but the alcohol has taken over. And she starts telling this babbling story that she couldn't get out. And she starts telling all about when she was a little kid and they used to play together and how she feels so guilty. All of her grief shows up when the alcohol shows up. And that's typically what happens at these events, is that we mix these emotions with drugs or alcohol, and what we didn't want to have happen happens.
You ever seen those memes? And that's when the fight started. It's like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring the margarita to the repast. You're
Yeah.
gonna see. You want some action? Oh, you're gonna have
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. And that's typically when all the and it's like you're going from one person who's falling down, then you see the other person, then everybody runs over to that person and they start fanning them and getting all the love around them. It can be a true crappy show, when all the emotions start to show up. But you had add alcohol to it. And I was just using that version because most of us have been to one of those ceremonies or after celebrations of life.
Yeah, it can be very, very challenging because you're right. The alcohol brings all of the emotion bubbling to the surface, and it's that liquid courage that you get to speak your truth. Although with alcohol, it's an altered version of the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have the courage to say those things that you definitely shouldn't say. What is that? Uh, drunken thoughts speak sober words or something like that. It's like, I
Yeah.
think that's the saying. You
Yeah.
get that, and then you have this whole hodgepodge, and you got to start peeling back the layers to get to what's really the hurt in that once you add the alcohol in.
So not every family fights. Not every family fights, but most do, or most don't like someone in the family doesn't like the way things are done, have space for that. Hold the space for the griever that's showing up angry. But to the griever that's showing up angry, let everybody know, hey, I got some unresolved things here. I don't know what this is. I'm going to do my best to control it, or make a conscious decision to control it. Go after your own grief before you start taking it out on the other person. Do your best to keep the emotions at a minimum while you're planning and while you're going through the grieving experience. I don't know that this is going to fix it. I'm not trying to fix it. We just need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of these emotions before they show up there.
Yeah. And I would also say have a designated person that's your safe space that you vent to. So like while you're driving to mom's house and you're on the phone, I can't believe I don't want to be there talking to that heifer. She always does this to me. She does that. Let that out because that takes the steam off. So when you
Yeah.
get there, you don't have all that built up.
Yeah.
And then call them on the way home so you can dump again on your way home. You don't need that building up because at one point it is going to explode.
Yeah. Good luck, friends. We've been there. We know what it's like. We're sending you all the good energy that we can, all the good healing energy. And know that we're thinking of you. If you ever want to talk and just break it down, Erica and I are amazing listeners. We're great at hearing the story and sharing our own stories of how we got through.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends.
Bye, friends.